The sky, on July 2nd, is a perfect, untroubled blue. The kind of sky that promises a long, lazy holiday weekend of barbecues, parades, and fireworks celebrating the birth of a nation. But then, the shadow falls. Not a cloud, but a geometric, monolithic darkness. A city-sized slab of alien engineering blotting out the sun over New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. This is the first unforgettable breath of Independence Day, 1996, a film that is not merely a science fiction disaster epic, but cultural and economic event that recalibrated the very scale of summer blockbuster filmmaking. Directed by Roland Emmerich and written by Emmerich and Dean Devlin, this film represents a paradigm shift, the moment when the spectacle of global catastrophe became a mass-market, emotionally resonant, and astonishingly profitable art form. It is a masterwork of calculated, cinematic alchemy, merging B-movie pulp sincerity with A-list ambition, groundbreaking visual effects with old-fashioned character archetypes, and a budget of $75 million into a global box office behemoth of over $817 million. It is a film about the world uniting against an external threat, and in doing so, it united global audiences in a shared experience of awe, terror, and triumphant, flag-waving catharsis. To understand the seismic impact of Independence Day, one must first contextualize the cinematic landscape of mid-1996. The era was defined by a transition. The practical effects grandeur of the early 90s Jurassic Park was giving way to the nascent potential of digital creation. The disaster genre was largely dormant, relegated to airport paperbacks and Irwin Allen reruns. The summer movie season was a playground for superheroes Batman Forever, action stars Mission Impossible, and animation The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Into this environment, Independence Day arrived not as competitor, but as a category killer. It wasn't content to be a movie. It aimed to be a spectacle on the level of a World's Fair or a space launch. Its marketing campaign famously offered no hint of the alien threat until the film's release, relying on enigmatic, foreboding shots of the massive shadows over landmarks. This was a gamble on audience curiosity of epic proportions, a $75 million bet that the sight of the White House exploding would be a more powerful draw than any star's name above the title. The film's narrative architecture is a brilliant exercise in globalized, parallel storytelling, a narrative infrastructure designed to make the planetary threat feel intimate and personal. It operates like a master switchboard, connecting a dozen distinct character threads across the United States and later the world into a single, overwhelming surge of collective response. We meet Captain Stephen Hiller, Will Smith, a cocksure Marine Corps fighter pilot with dreams of flying the space shuttle. David Levinson, Jeff Goldblum, a neurotic, brilliant MIT-educated satellite technician. President Thomas J. Whitmore, Bill Pullman, a young, idealistic former fighter pilot turned leader facing a crisis beyond political calculation, and a sprawling ensemble, including a stripper with a heart of gold, a boozy crop duster, a dedicated military general, a fiery first lady, and a determined computer whiz. Each character represents a facet of the American, and by extension human, psyche, courage, intellect, leadership, resilience, vice, and innocence. The first act is a masterclass in efficient character deployment, making us care about these archetypes quickly so that their survival or sacrifice will matter when the apocalypse arrives. The alien threat itself is a masterpiece of minimalist, yet overwhelmingly powerful design. The ships are not sleek saucers or organic beasts. They are vast, featureless, obsidian discs, 15 miles in diameter, hovering with silent, incomprehensible menace. They are pure geometric intimidation, a visual representation of an intelligence so advanced it perceives human cities as mere anthills to be paved over. Their arrival is not accompanied by laser battles or immediate invasion. It is a period of silent, global dread, a masterful buildup of tension as humanity stares up at a technology that defies all understanding. This quiet period is the film's most psychologically astute choice. It forces the characters and the audience to contemplate the sheer scale of their own impotence. The aliens' eventual attack is not a military maneuver. It is an extermination. The iconic destruction sequences, the White House, the Empire State Building, the U.S. Bank Tower, are executed not with the intricate detail of later CGI films, but with the devastating, flattened finality of a thumb crushing a bug. The visual effects, a hybrid of practical model work and nascent digital compositing supervised by Volker Engel, have a tangible, brutal weight that sells the horror of absolute, instantaneous obliteration. At the heart of the film's emotional engineering is the concept of American mythology refracted through a global lens. The narrative architecture of Independence Day is a masterwork of catastrophic escalation and parallel convergence, a plot engineered not as a linear story, but as a global systems check, where the failure of one node, diplomacy, technology, military might, triggers the urgent activation of another, until only raw human ingenuity and defiance remain. The film's first half, encompassing everything from the initial detection of the alien signal to the cataclysmic destruction of humanity's major cities and the desperate retreat to Area 51, is a relentless, two-part symphony. Part 1 is a slow, dreadful ascent of tension as the incomprehensible arrives. Part 2 is the brutal, unflinching depiction of its wrath. This structural choice is critical. It forces the audience to sit in the same bewildered, anxious state as the characters, making the eventual payoff of resistance feel not just exciting, but absolutely necessary for psychological survival. The plot functions like a pressure cooker, sealing the world in a container of dread before releasing it in a geyser fire and, ultimately, desperate hope. The inciting incident is not a dramatic invasion, but a quiet, technological anomaly. In a remote desert satellite tracking station, technicians detect a structured, repeating signal of unknown origin masking itself as commercial static. This moment is the film's first subtle stroke of genius. The threat is introduced not as a monster, but as Data, a ghost in the machine. David Levinson, our entry point into this mystery, deciphers the signal not with military hardware, but with a laptop at his father's kosher deli, using his intellect and a borrowed satellite dish. This establishes the core conflict's nature. It is a war of information first, of physics later. David's realization that the signal is a countdown is a chilling pivot from curiosity to terror. The countdown itself is a masterful narrative device, a universal ticking clock that injects urgency into every subsequent scene, from a frantic drive to Washington, D.C., to the president's skeptical war room. It transforms the aliens from a potential curiosity into a scheduled executioner. The arrival of the ships is handled with a monumental, almost religious gravity. The film cuts across the globe: New York, Los Angeles, Washington, Paris, London, Moscow, showing ordinary people staring up as the monolithic shadows eclipse their cities. There are no screams, only stunned silence. This sequence is less about action and more about awe, a deliberate evocation of sublime terror that comes from witnessing something that dwarfs human civilization. The ships don't land, they park. They claim the sky. This passive, hovering presence is more unnerving than an immediate attack would be. It creates a global state of suspended animation, a collective holding of breath. The world's governments, represented by President Whitmore and his advisors, are immediately paralyzed by the dilemma. This is not an enemy that communicates or makes demands. It is an event. How do you negotiate with a hurricane? How do you declare war on a mountain? The film smartly shows the total failure of traditional political and military frameworks in the face of such a phenomenon. The failure of first contact is the plot's point of no return. In a bold, optimistic gesture, President Whitmore authorizes a welcoming squadron of helicopters to approach the ship over the Capitol. The sequence is a beautifully orchestrated exercise in false hope. The music swells. The helicopters approach with ceremonial slowness, and for a moment, the possibility of peaceful contact hangs in the air. Then, with a single devastating energy pulse, the alien ship annihilates them without a sound. This isn't an act of war in a human sense. It is a casual flicking away of a gnat. It demonstrates an absolute lack of interest in dialogue or recognition. The message is clear. Humanity is not a peer, not even an adversary. It is an obstacle, or perhaps simply background noise. This moment shatters any lingering naivete and galvanizes Whitmore into a warrior president. The countdown, now understood as a weapon priming sequence, enters its final moments. The destruction sequence that follows is arguably the most iconic series of shots in 1990 cinema. It is not a battle. It is an eradication. The aliens deploy city-killer energy weapons from the underside of their motherships. The targeting is precise, systematic, and merciless. The film's special effects team, using a combination of meticulously detailed physical models, forced perspective miniatures, and early digital compositing, created images of annihilation that felt shockingly real. The White House explosion is not a fireball. It is a rolling wave of plasma and debris that consumes everything in a perfect hemisphere. The film lingers on these moments. The Empire State Building shearing apart, the Los Angeles skyline collapsing, allowing the audience to fully absorb the scale of the loss. This is not gratuitous. It is essential. By destroying the most recognizable symbols of human power and achievement, the film visually resets the stakes. Civilization, as we know it, is over. The playing field is leveled to zero. Humanity is no longer defending its cities. It is fighting for its right to exist at all. In the immediate post-destruction chaos, the plot fractures into a series of intimate survival stories, humanizing the global catastrophe. President Whitmore, his wife wounded, is evacuated on Air Force One, becoming a leader without a capital. Captain Hiller, after a breathtaking dogfight against an alien attacker over Los Angeles, a sequence that introduces both the agility of the alien fighters and Hiller's brilliant seat-of-his-pants flying style, crash lands and rescues a stranded group, including his girlfriend Jasmine and her son. David Levinson and his estranged wife Connie, a White House press aide, escaped the D.C. blast in a stolen helicopter. These parallel journeys serve a vital function. They ground the unimaginable scale of the disaster in relatable human goals. Find family, reach safety, protect the wounded. They also begin the process of assembling the film's central heroic cohort through shared trauma and necessity. The convergence of these threads at the secret military base in Area 51, Nevada, is the pivotal narrative nexus of the first half. Area 51 serves as the film's brilliant narrative pressure valve and repository of hope. It is a place of American myth, and the film literalizes that myth by revealing it holds the ultimate secret, a captured alien ship and its deceased pilot from the 1947 Roswell crash. This revelation is the plot's first major injection of strategic possibility. It transforms a conflict from a purely defensive struggle into one with potential offensive component. The introduction of Dr. Brackish Oaken, Brent Spiner, the manic, decades-long student of the alien technology, provides both comic relief and critical exposition. His failed attempt to interface with the alien technology and the subsequent terrifying revival of the captive pilot serve as a brutal reminder of the enemy's biological and technological superiority. The pilot's psychic attack and subsequent death by container seal the alien's nature as irredeemably hostile and introduce the concept of a shared consciousness, a key piece of intelligence for the second half. The first half concludes not with a victory, but with a hard-won strategic assessment and the germination of a desperate plan. In the bowels of Area 51, amidst the wreckage of human confidence, David Levinson has his epiphany. By studying the global attack patterns, he deduces that the alien ships use a type of planetary satellite network for coordination and shielding, a force field of sorts. More importantly, He theorizes that if one ship's defenses can be brought down, the signal could be used to upload a computer virus to disrupt the entire network. This idea is insane, unprecedented, and the only glimmer of a non-nuclear solution. It is a classic underdog strategy. Use the enemy's own strength against them. President Whitmore, having witnessed the failure of all conventional weapons, seizes upon this thread of hope. The stage is now set. The surviving elements of the global military are regrouping. The plan is conceived. The second half will be about the impossible execution of that plan. A coordinated global counterattack on July 4th, a new Independence Day for the entire world. The first half was about the world breaking. The second half will be about humanity picking up the sharpest pieces and learning how to fight back. The second half of Independence Day undergoes a profound tonal and strategic shift, moving from the reactive horror of survival to the proactive, desperate audacity of counterattack. Having established the totality of humanity's defeat, the plot now engineers its phoenix-like rise, transforming a scattered, shell-shocked collection of survivors into a unified, global fighting force. This half is a masterclass in the assembly and execution of a Hail Mary pass on a planetary scale, a narrative built on the intricate interweaving of preparation, sacrifice, and the terrifying conversion of theoretical science into battlefield reality. The countdown is no longer to destruction, but to a single, coordinated strike where failure means extinction. The emotional core pivots from fear to resolve, from loss to the fierce, burning will to reclaim a future. The opening of the second half is set in the aftermath, in the dusty, claustrophobic confines of Area 51. The mood is one of exhausted despair, a global refugee camp for the remnants of power. President Whitmore, now bearing the immense psychological weight of the office without its symbols, must transition from a grieving husband and father to a wartime commander-in-chief. His leadership arc here is critical. He listens to the bleak assessments from his generals, who advocate for a futile, last-ditch nuclear strike. He then listens to David Levinson's wild, unproven theory of a computer virus. Whitmore's decision to bet the fate of the human species on a nerdy satellite technician's idea is the film's first major act of transformative leadership. It is a rejection of old paradigm thinking, bigger bombs, in favor of new paradigm ingenuity, smarter code. This moment in the war room, where he chooses David's plan, is the narrative fulcrum. It signifies that humanity's hope lies not in matching the aliens' brute force, but in outthinking them, a fundamentally human advantage. David's task is to build the weapon, and it is a race against a different kind of clock, the impending global nuclear counterman from other surviving world leaders. Working in a hangar with a captured alien attacker ship, David, Dr. Oken, now recovered, and a team of scientists must reverse engineer an interface to upload a virus into a completely alien operating system. This sequence is a brilliant dramatization of high-stakes software development. The tension isn't in physical action, but in intellectual desperation. David's father, Julius, provides a grounding, human perspective, his Yiddish proverbs and stubborn pragmatism acting as an emotional anchor. The successful, if explosive, interface with the ship's systems is a small victory, a proof of concept that fuels the entire operation. It proves the aliens are not magic. They are advanced engineers, and their technology can be hacked. Parallel to the scientific effort, the military machine is grinding back to life. Captain Hiller, having delivered the captured alien ship to Area 51, is reunited with his fellow pilots, including the wisecracking Jimmy Wilder and the intense Captain Jimmy. The film takes time to show the pilot ready rooms, the briefing sessions, the nervous camaraderie. These scenes are vital. They reestablish the human cost. These are not faceless soldiers. They are men and women who just lost everything, now being asked to fly what they know is likely a suicide mission. Hiller's promotion and his role in the plan, to fly the captured ship, deliver David to the mothership, and provide cover, solidifies his arc from talented hot dogger to essential leader. His relationship with David, the brain to his brawn, becomes the operational core of the mission. Meanwhile, on a global scale, the film expands its scope beyond America. Through radio broadcasts and intercepted communications, we see that the rest of the world is also preparing a last stand. This is a crucial narrative decision that elevates the film from a U.S.-centric action movie to a genuine global war story. We learn that coordinated attacks are being planned by surviving forces in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The film's message of unity is made explicit when, in a powerful scene, the president is informed that the previously uncooperative Russian, Chinese, and other military commands are now aligning their strikes with the July 4th timeline. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day, becomes a planetary sentiment. This global buy-in validates Whitmore's leadership and David's plan, turning a desperate American scheme into the unified battle plan for humanity. The preparation culminates in President Whitmore's legendary pre-battle speech on the dusty tarmac of Area 51. Standing before a ragged assembly of soldiers, civilians, and pilots, he delivers a monologue that is less a political address and more a primal incantation. He speaks not of politics or strategy, but of survival, of history, of the fundamental human desire for freedom from oppression. He explicitly links the fight to the American Revolution, framing the aliens as the ultimate tyranny. The speech works because it is stripped of nuance and appeals directly to the limbic system, to fear, to anger, to the will to live. It is a masterstroke of cinematic rhetoric, designed to pump adrenaline not just into the characters on screen, but into the audience in the theater. It marks the formal end of the preparation phase and the thunderous beginning of the execution phase. The execution of the plan is a three-act structure in itself: insertion, confrontation, and climax. Act 1, the launch. Across the world, surviving fighter squadrons take the skies. The visual of jets screaming from hidden bases, deserts, and aircraft carriers is a powerful image of resurrection. Hiller and David, and the captured alien fighter, launch from Area 51, their tiny craft a Trojan horse against a city-sized mothership. Act 2, the failure. The initial global assault is a catastrophic, demoralizing defeat. As predicted, all conventional weapons, missiles, bullets, bombs, are useless against the alien shields. Squadron after squadron is annihilated in futile attacks. The dazzling, horrifying dogfights showcase the agility of the alien fighters and the tragic bravery of human pilots dying for no gain. This sequence is necessary to crush the fleeting hope, to demonstrate that the virus is not just the best plan, but the only plan. The narrative focus tightens exclusively on Hiller and David's insertion team. Their journey into the belly of the Los Angeles mothership is a descent into an organic technological hell. The production design inside the ship is genius, a wet, pulsating biomechanical womb, a stark contrast to the cold, geometric exterior. It feels alive and malevolent. David's attempt to interface and upload the virus is a nerve-shredding sequence of technological tension. The alien OS is visualized as a swirling organic light show. David's laptop, with its chunky 90s graphics and frantic typing, seems laughably primitive. The failure of the first upload attempt, we have a problem, is a masterful gut punch. It forces Hiller to make a split-second, insane decision to physically connect the two systems by manually linking cables in an alien power core, a task that will likely kill him. This moment, Hiller's suicidal wiring job, is the emotional and strategic climax of the second half. It represents the ultimate synthesis of the film's twin pillars: David's intellect and Hiller's courage, brain and brawn working in perfect, desperate sync. As Hiller is electrocuted, dangling from the cables, David successfully uploads the virus. The shields on the mothership flicker and die. This small victory is communicated instantly across the globe. President Whitmore, leading the remaining Air Force squadron personally, sees the shield drop and seizes a moment with the iconic line, "All right, you alien assholes. In the words of my generation, up yours." The global order is given. Fire at will. The final battle is a cathartic release of 2 hours of pent-up tension. With the shields down, the human forces can finally strike back. The dogfights are no longer suicidal. They are competitive. The film cross-cuts between battles over Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., where Whitmore engages in aerial combat, and the ruins of New York. The destruction of the motherships is rendered with apocalyptic grandeur. Massive structures crumbling from within, crashing into the cities they once hovered over. The coordinated victory across 3 time zones visually reinforces the theme of global unity. The final blow is delivered by Russell Cass, the alcoholic crop duster who has been seeking redemption for his claims of alien abduction. In a Christ-like moment of sacrifice, he flies his armed plane directly into the weapon core of the wounded mothership, yelling, "Hello, boys. I'm back, Ack." His act seals a victory, a narrative payoff that grants dignity and purpose to the film's most broken character. The second half concludes not with a complex denouement, but with a series of triumphant, emotional tableaus. Hiller and David escape the exploding mothership. Whitmore lands safely. In the ruins, families reunite. Jasmine finds her son, the First Lady, off-screen, is revealed to have survived. The film ends on July 4th, with survivors gathering at the wreckage of the White House, a new, makeshift community forming amidst the ashes. A tattered American flag is raised. The message is clear. Civilization was not destroyed. It was reforged. The victory is not clean. Cities are in ruins, millions are dead, but the species has won its right to future. The second half masterfully converted the first half's devastation into a resonant, emotionally satisfying victory by tying that victory to universal human traits: ingenuity, courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable will to live free. It turned a disaster movie into a war movie, and a war movie into a celebration of the indomitable human spirit. The psychology of Independence Day operates on a grand, archetypal scale, mapping the collective human response to existential extinction through a portfolio of distinctly drawn, yet universally recognizable character types. This is not a film of deep internal monologue or complex neuroses. It is a film of externalized, primal drives, fear, courage, intellect, love, and the will to survive, amplified to world-shattering volume. Each major character functions as a psychological node in a global network response, representing a different facet of human capability and spirit that must be activated and integrated to overcome the alien threat. The film's brilliance lies in how it makes these archetypal psychologies feel both mythic and intimately relatable, allowing the audience to see fragments of themselves in the brain. The brawn, the leader, the everyman, and the broken soul seeking redemption. The collective psychological journey is from individual paralysis to unified, defiant action, a transformation engineered by the sheer magnitude of threat. Captain Stephen Hiller embodies the psychology of confident, action-oriented competence. His is a mind built for the present tense, for solving problems with reflexes, guts, and a touch of swagger. He is not a deep thinker about the cosmos. He is a doer. His initial reaction to the alien fighter over Los Angeles is not philosophical terror, but competitive excitement. All right, you want some? Come and get it. Followed by focused tactical ingenuity. His psychology is rooted in a deep-seated belief in his own agency. Even when faced with an impossible enemy, his response is to engage, to outfly, to capture. This makes him the perfect vessel for the film's most audacious physical actions. His psychological arc is one of responsibility. He begins as a talented pilot, seeking personal glory, a shot at the space shuttle. The crisis forges him into a leader who willingly accepts a suicide mission, not for glory, but because he is the only one who can do it. His courage is not the absence of fear, but the channeling of it into flawless performance under pressure. He represents a human body and spirit at their peak, optimized for survival and combat. David Levinson represents the psychology of the analytical, anticipatory mind. Where Hiller lives in the present, David lives in the near future, obsessively parsing data for patterns and threats. He is anxiety incarnate, a man whose intelligence is both a gift and a burden, allowing him to see doom coming while others remain blissfully ignorant. His psychological driver is the need to solve the puzzle, to impose order on chaos through logic. His journey from a neurotic cable technician to the architect of humanity's salvation is a journey of his intellect being validated and weaponized. The crisis forces his internal hyperactive mind out into the world, where it becomes our most vital asset. His relationship with Hiller is psychologically symbiotic. David needs Hiller's courage to enact his plans. Hiller needs David's brain to give his courage a target. Together, they form a complete psychological unit for war. David's arc is about the empowerment of the thinker in a world suddenly dominated by brute force, proving that in the end, the most powerful weapon is a good idea. President Thomas J. Whitmore undergoes the most profound psychological transformation, a journey from political leader to a mythical one. Initially, he is portrayed as somewhat diminished, a young president whose approval ratings are low, grappling with political nuance and public perception. The alien invasion instantly vaporizes the political sphere. His psychology is forcibly stripped of all concerns except one: the survival of the species. The death of his wife, though off-screen, is the crucible that hardens his resolve. We see him move through stages of grief, shock, and military briefing room despair before arriving at a state of grim, determined clarity. His psychology becomes one of symbolic burden. He must no longer represent a party or a policy, but the collective will to live. His legendary speech is not political rhetoric. It is psychological therapy for a traumatized species. He articulates the fear, names the enemy, and offers the only viable response: unified defiance. He becomes a father figure for all of humanity, his psychology merging with the role of commander-in-chief in its most literal, apocalyptic sense. Julius Levinson, David's father, provides a psychology of enduring, pragmatic humanity. He is the link to the pre-invasion world, a man of tradition, humor, and street-smart survival instincts. His Yiddish proverbs and persistent concern about David finding a new wife offer a grounding, human-scale counterpoint to the cosmic horror. He represents the stubborn, everyday will to live, to find joy and protect family. His psychology is one of resilience, not of warriors or geniuses, but of ordinary people who simply refuse to lay down and die. He is the heart of the operation, the emotional glue that keeps David, and by extension the audience, connected to the simple, human reasons for fighting. His survival and final embrace with David affirm that the future, if one, will be built on these enduring human connections. Russellcast is the film study in fractured psychology, seeking wholeness through sacrifice. A former fighter pilot now broken by alcoholism, grief, and the social stigma of being a UFO nut, he represents the lost and the marginalized. His psychology is driven by a desperate need for validation and redemption. His claims of prior alien abduction, a source of ridicule, are horrifically validated by the invasion, but this brings him no solace, only a deeper isolation. His journey is towards reclaiming his dignity and purpose. Volunteering for the suicide mission is, for him, not just an act of bravery, but a psychological necessity. It is the only way to prove to himself, to his children, to the world, that he was not crazy, that his pain had meaning, and that he could still be the hero he once was. His final act is a psychological catharsis of immense power, transforming his perceived weakness, his crazy story, into the unique insight that allows him to deliver the killing blow. He represents the idea that in a total war, every soul, no matter how damaged, has a part to play and can achieve redemption. The aliens themselves, while not given individual psychology, represent a terrifying collective psychological force. Pure expansionist ID. They are consumption and destruction without motive, reason, or empathy. They are a force of nature with technology, a psychological black hole that offers no possibility for negotiation or understanding. Their shared consciousness eliminates individuality, fear, and doubt, making them a perfectly efficient, perfectly ruthless enemy. They represent the ultimate other, a psychology so alien that the only possible human response is total, defensive war. They force humanity's disparate psychologies to coalesce by presenting a threat that acknowledges no difference between American and Russian, soldier and civilian, brain and brawn. The collective psychological transformation of humanity in the film is engineered by the shared trauma of the city destroyer attacks. This event performs a mass psychological reset. Petty concerns, national rivalries, and personal grievances are vaporized along with the cities. The shared near-death experience creates a global, unified consciousness focused on a single goal: survival. The film argues that it takes a threat of absolute annihilation to forge absolute unity. The psychology of tribalism is overwritten by the psychology of the tribe of humanity. This is perhaps the film's most potent fantasy. Not the spaceships or the virus, but the vision of the world's governments and militaries instantly setting aside centuries of conflict to work in perfect harmony. It is a psychological wish fulfillment of the highest order, suggesting that beneath our divisions, a unified will survive as our default setting, waiting for the right cataclysm to activate it. In essence, Independence Day present a robust, optimistic map of the human psychological spectrum under ultimate stress. It argues that we have, within our collective makeup, all the necessary components to survive any threat. The smart mind to devise a plan, the brave heart to execute it, the strong leader to unite us, the enduring spirit to remember why we fight, and even the broken soul who can find redemption in the struggle. The film's psychology is not subtle, but it is powerful and effective because it speaks to fundamental, shared human instincts. It reassures us that even in the face of gods in the sky, the human psyche, in all its very glory, is not obsolete. It is our ultimate weapon. The financial architecture of Independence Day is a landmark case study in high-risk, high-reward blockbuster economics, a venture that didn't just aim for profitability, but sought to redefine the revenue ceiling for a summer event film. The reported production budget of $75 million in 1996 dollars was a monumental sum, equivalent to approximately $150 million today. This capital outlay was not merely for stars or marketing, but a deliberate, aggressive investment in a new tier of cinematic spectacle. The global-scale disaster rendered a hybrid of cutting-edge digital effects and massive practical model work. This budget was a declaration of war on audience expectations, a bet that the public would pay a premium to see their own world destroyed with a verisimilitude never before achieved. The film's subsequent global box office haul of over $817 million, over $1.6 billion adjusted, stands as a staggering return on investment, a multiplier that cemented the Vent movie as Hollywood's most powerful financial engine and validated a specific formula: star-driven ensemble plus groundbreaking VFX plus simple, emotionally resonant premise equals global domination. Deconstructing the $75 million budget reveals a strategic allocation that prioritized on-screen spectacle above all else. A significant portion, estimated at over $30 million, was dedicated to visual effects and physical production. The effects house, vision art design, and model shop, under supervisor Volker Engel, built incredibly detailed miniature cities: Los Angeles, New York, Washington, D.C., at a scale of 112 and 124, with thousands of individually crafted buildings, vehicles, and streets. These models were not static. They were engineered for destruction with complex pneumatic and explosive rigs. The seamless integration of these miniatures with live-action plates, digital matte paintings, and early CGI elements, like the alien shields and energy weapons, required thousands of hours of labor from hundreds of artists. This was not an outsourcing of key scenes. It was a construction of the film's core product. The budget also encompassed a massive practical sets. The interior of the Area 51 hangar, the alien ship interior, a wet bioluminescent stage, and extensive wreckage sets for post-destruction scenes. Every dollar spent here was a direct investment in the film's unique selling proposition: believable, immersive annihilation. Above-the-line talent costs were managed with savvy foresight. Will Smith, while a massive TV star from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, was not yet a proven box office movie lead. His fee was likely in the low millions, a fantastic value for the charisma and star power he delivered. Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman were respected actors, but not A-list draws commanding $10+ million salaries. This allocation strategy allowed the bulk of the budget to flow into the spectacle rather than actor paychecks. The ensemble approach also distributed marquee value, reducing reliance on a single star. Director Roland Emmerich and producer Dean Devlin operated under their Centropolis Entertainment banner, giving them creative control, but also tying their compensation significantly to the film's back-end profits, aligning their financial fate directly with the film's success, a powerful incentive for fiscal and creative discipline. Marketing and distribution costs were another colossal outlay, estimated to match or even exceed the production budget, bringing the total investment to around $150 million. The marketing campaign, orchestrated by 20th Century Fox, was a masterpiece of enigmatic, event-driven promotion. The initial teasers and posters famously showed only the ominous shadows of the ships over landmarks, with the tagline, "On July 2nd, our military first detected their presence. On July 3rd, our planet discovered their intention. On July 4th, we fight back." This campaign sold mystery and scale, not plot or characters. It ignited widespread public speculation and media coverage, generating priceless free publicity. The studio orchestrated a massive global release, ensuring the film opened day and date in dozens of countries to capitalize on the synchronized hype and blunt piracy. This P&A, print and advertising spend was a necessary multiplier, a financial accelerant poured onto the $75 million Bonfire production to create a worldwide cultural inferno. The box office performance was historic and paradigm-shifting. Domestically, Independence Day opened to a then-record $50.2 million over the three-day July 4th weekend, a Wednesday through Sunday total of $96.1 million. Its legs were extraordinary. It remained the #1 film for 3 consecutive weeks and stayed in the top 10 for over 2 months. It eventually grossed $306.2 million domestically, becoming the second highest grossing film of all time at that point, behind only Jurassic Park. Internationally, it was a sensation, grossing $511.1 million, a testament to its visual, non-language dependent storytelling and universal themes. The global total of $817.4 million made it the highest grossing film of 1996 and, for a time, the highest grossing film ever worldwide, unadjusted for inflation. The ROI was astronomical. Using a rough industry rule that a studio retains about 50% of domestic and 40% of international box office, Fox's theatrical revenue share would have been approximately $350 to $400 million. This meant the film likely recouped its combined production and marketing costs from theatrical revenue alone, a rare and resounding success, with all subsequent revenue streams representing pure profit. The downstream revenue pipeline, turbocharged by the film's theatrical tsunami, was immense. Home video sales, VHS and Laserdisc, were colossal, as families sought to own the spectacle. The film became a staple of cable television, commanding high licensing fees for years. Merchandising, while not as toy-driven as a Star Wars, included novels, video games, and collectibles. The film's title and iconic imagery became permanently embedded in popular culture, ensuring its longevity as a revenue-generating asset. Each television airing, each digital sale, each streaming license continues to generate marginal income, amortizing initial investment over decades. The film transformed into a perennial library asset, a gift that kept on giving for Fox's corporate bottom line. Furthermore, Independence Day had a profound impact on the industry's economic calculus. It proved that a non-sequel, original, if derivative, concept could open at record levels. It solidified the July 4th weekend as the prime real estate for event cinema. It demonstrated the global market's appetite for American-made, high-concept destruction on a planetary scale. The film's success directly greenlit a wave of late 90s disaster epics: Armageddon, Deep Impact, Godzilla, The Day After Tomorrow, and validated massive spending on digital effects. It raised the financial stakes of what constituted a summer tentpole, pushing budgets ever higher in an arms race for spectacle. In essence, it helped industrialize the blockbuster model, making the $100 million plus production budget a standard for aspiring event films. The film also functioned as a colossal career-launching and value-creating engine. It cemented Will Smith's transition from TV star to global movie superstar, exponentially increasing his future asking price. It made Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin the kings of the disaster genre, giving them the clout to command large budgets for their subsequent projects. The visual effects teams and artists involved saw their stock rise dramatically, contributing to the growth and prestige of the VFX industry. The film's financial triumph was a rising tide that lifted many boats, creating wealth and opportunity across the Hollywood ecosystem. In final analysis, the economics of Independence Day represent a perfect storm of strategic investment, innovative craft, and masterful market timing. It spent money where it mattered most, on creating an undeniable must-see cinematic experience, and marketed that experience as a global event. Its financial legacy is twofold. First, as a singular home-run investment that yielded billions in revenue across all media. Second, as a template that reshaped Hollywood's ambitions and spending habits for a generation. It proved that with the right combination of spectacle, heart, and timing, a film could do more than just make money. It could become a worldwide economic event, a temporary monopoly on collective attention that translates into historic financial returns. The alien motherships may have been after our planet's resources, but the film itself became a resource of staggering value, a goldmine of entertainment that continues to pay dividends to this day. The technological achievement of Independence Day is a watershed moment in cinematic history, a monumental bridge between the analog craftsmanship of practical effects and the burgeoning digital revolution. The film did not merely use special effects. It was engineered around them, with its very narrative constructed to showcase a scale of destruction previously confined to imagination or low-budget illusion. The production, under the supervision of Volker Engel and Doug Smith, became a sprawling multi-studio industrial effort, merging the meticulous art of physical model-making with the nascent, risky capabilities of digital compositing and computer-generated imagery. This hybrid approach was not a choice but a necessity in 1995 to 96. No single technology could realize the vision alone. The result was a seamless, tangible, and awe-inspiring visual language that made the impossible feel horrifyingly present, setting a new benchmark for cinematic spectacle and proving that the audience's belief could be purchased through a combination of old-world artistry and new-world computation. The crown jewels of the film's effects were the miniature cities. Unlike the digital cityscapes of today, the urban destruction in Independence Day had physical mass, real gravity, and genuine explosive force. Teams at the Warner Brothers Model Shop and Vision Art Design built staggeringly detailed miniatures of Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C. at scales of 1/12 for close destruction and 1/24 for wide shots. The Los Angeles model alone was over 60 feet long and contained thousands of individually crafted buildings, streetlights, and parked cars. These were not static dioramas. They were complex mechanical systems. Buildings were rigged with precise explosive charges and pneumatic pistons to collapse in specific, choreographed sequences. For the White House explosion, a 1/12 scale model of the building and its surrounding lawn was built. The destruction was achieved with a shaped charge placed underneath, creating the iconic rolling plasma wave, while debris was launched using carefully timed air cannons. The resulting footage had a visceral, chaotic authenticity that pure CGI often struggles to replicate because it was capturing real physics, real shattered plaster, real flying splinters, real dust clouds. The alien ships themselves were triumphs of both model making and conceptual design. The 15-mile wide mothership models, some spanning over 12 feet in diameter, were intricately detailed sculptures of black geometric patterns, illuminated from within by complex fiber optic systems to create the eerie glow of their lights and weapon ports. The smaller attacker ships were both physical models for dogfight sequences and, in a landmark move, digital creations. The film's most significant digital gamble was the creation of fully computer-generated alien fighters. At a time when CGI was primarily used for morphing, Terminator 2, or fantastical creatures, Jurassic Park. Rendering complex, hard-surface vehicles with realistic motion and lighting for extended action sequences was a formidable challenge. The team at Digital Domain, using proprietary software, created the sleek, insect-like attackers, animating them in swarms of dozens for the dogfight scenes. The seamless integration of these CGI elements with live-action fighter jet footage and pyrotechnics was a groundbreaking achievement, setting the standard for all future aerial sci-fi combat. The film's signature visual, the city-destroying energy beam, was a hybrid effect of extraordinary ingenuity. The beam itself was a practical element, a high-intensity light source filmed against black, creating a solid column of light. This footage was then optically composited over the miniature city scenes. The impact and explosion, however, were entirely practical, using the rig miniatures. The shield effect surrounding the ships, a shimmering, honeycomb-like energy barrier, was one of the film's first fully digital, frame-by-frame visual effects. Artists at Vision Art manually rotoscoped and animated the shield distortion over every frame of the mothership footage, a painstaking process that sold the concept of an impenetrable defensive technology. This effect alone required thousands of hours of manual digital labor, representing a massive allocation of both time and financial capital to a single, crucial aesthetic detail. The sound design and mixing, which won the Academy Award for Best Sound, were technological feats of equal importance. Sound designer Chris Jenkins and his team constructed an entirely new auditory palette for alien technology. The deep, subharmonic drones of the motherships were created by slowing down and manipulating the sounds of jet engines and industrial machinery. The shrieking, organic sounds of the alien fighters were blends of animal screams and metallic stress. The city destruction sound were layered symphonies of real explosions, building collapses and shattering glass, mixed at ear-splitting volume to emphasize the cataclysm. The mix was so powerful and immersive it became a character in itself, physically shaking theater seats and deepening the sense of overwhelming force. The technology of the mix, the dynamic range, the spatial placement of sounds in the Dolby stereo field, was pushed to its limits to create a holistic sensory experience. The production's data management and compositing pipeline were nascent compared to today, but were pushed to their absolute brink. With hundreds of effect shots requiring the layering of live-action plates, miniature elements, CGI, and digital matte paintings, the optical and digital compositing process was a logistical nightmare. Companies like CIS Hollywood handled the optical printing, physically combining multiple film elements onto a single strip of celluloid. For more complex shots, digital compositing was used on then state-of-the-art silicon graphics workstations running software like Avid Matador and Adobe After Effects. The render times for the CGI fighters were measured in days per frame. The entire post-production schedule was a relentless race against time, with effects shots being finalized mere weeks before the film's release. This pressure cooker environment forced innovative problem-solving and cemented the need for more integrated, digital-heavy pipelines in future large-scale productions. The film also pioneered the use of digital crowd replication in a few key shots. For scenes showing masses of people fleeing or looking up at the ships, the effects team used a then revolutionary technique of filming small groups of extras, digitizing them, and then copying and pasting them into large crowds, varying their size and movement to avoid repetition. While primitive by today's AI-driven crowd simulation standards, this was a significant step toward creating populated digital environments, a technology that would explode in the following decade. In its totality, the technology of Independence Day was a grand, collaborative experiment that succeeded beyond all expectations. It proved that digital and practical effects were not adversaries, but partners. It demonstrated that audiences would accept CGI characters if they were integrated with care and supported by physical realism. The film's technical legacy is immense. It accelerated the industry's shift towards digital effects for complex set pieces, validated the economic viability of massive VFX budgets, and inspired a generation of artists and technicians. More than any single effect, its greatest technological achievement was synthesis, the seamless welding of model shop dynamite to digital domain code to create a new, credible, and breathtaking visual reality. It showed Hollywood that the tools to build convincing worlds of awe and terror were now in hand, and that the only limit was ambition and, of course, capital. The film didn't just depict an invasion. It launched an invasion of new possibilities for what cinema could show, and in doing so, changed the landscape of filmmaking forever. The production management of Independence Day was a logistical and diplomatic campaign of near-military complexity, an undertaking that required marshaling the resources of multiple major studios, coordinating hundreds of effects artists across disparate companies, and maintaining the cohesion of a sprawling cast and crew under immense creative and temporal pressure. Directed by Roland Emmerich and produced by Dean Devlin through their Centropolis Entertainment, in partnership with 20th Century Fox, the production was less a film shoot and more a multinational corporation formed for a single, 2-year product cycle, the creation of a global cinematic event. The challenges were manifold: a script undergoing constant revision even during filming, a groundbreaking effects schedule that lagged behind the live-action shoot, the coordination of massive practical sets and miniature units, and the overarching pressure of firm, immovable release date tied to the July 4th holiday. Successfully navigating this maze required a unique blend of visionary leadership, rigid scheduling, flexible problem-solving, and unwavering belief in the film's potential, often in the face of industry skepticism. The project's genesis was a high-concept pitch. What if aliens invaded and we fought back on the 4th of July? But its execution demanded an industrial framework. Pre-production began in early 1995 with the simultaneous development of the script and the visual effects strategy. This concurrency was critical and risky. While Emmerich and Devlin refined the character arcs and global storylines, production designer Patrick Tatopoulos and visual effects supervisor Volker Engel were already designing ships and planning city destructions. This meant committing millions of dollars to effects work before the script was fully locked, a gamble that forced the creative and logistical arms of production to evolve in tandem. The production office had to function as a central command, translating narrative needs into physical and digital requirements, and vice versa, ensuring that the cool ideas from the effects shops could be integrated into a coherent story. Principal photography, which commenced in the summer of 1995, was a study in controlled chaos. The schedule was meticulous patchwork, bouncing between large-scale practical locations and intimate stage work. Key sets included the massive hangar interior for Area 51. Built on a soundstage, the bioluminescent interior of the alien ship a wet, dark stage filled with custom-built organic-looking machinery, and the practical wreckage sets for post-destruction New York and Los Angeles. The live-action unit, led by cinematographer Carl Walter Lindenlaub, had to shoot plates with precise timing and camera moves to later accommodate effects that were only in storyboard form. For example, scenes of actors reacting to the mothership's shadows or dogfights were shot against blue sky, with the understanding that fantastical elements will be added months later. This required immense trust and precise communication between the director on set and the far-flung effects teams. The management of the visual effects pipeline was arguably the production's most daunting task. Unlike a modern VFX-driven film where a single vendor might oversee thousands of shots, Independence Day farmed out sequences to multiple independent houses based on their specific expertise. Digital domain for the CGI alien fighters, vision art for miniature destruction and compositing, Massachusetts illusion for specific digital effects, and others. This decentralized model was a management nightmare. It required a strong central VFX supervision team, Engel and co-supervisor Doug Smith, to act as quality control and creative consistency enforcers, traveling between facilities to ensure the New York destruction matched the tone of the Los Angeles destruction, and that the CGI attackers move in a way that was physically plausible alongside the practical pyrotechnics. The production had to manage these vendor schedules, budgets, and creative output, often playing mediator between competing technical visions and the director's intent. The miniature and pyrotechnics unit operated as its own self-contained film production under the guidance of model shop supervisor James F. Lyles and pyrotechnics supervisor Joe Viscasil. This team worked for months in isolation, building cities and rigging them for annihilation. Their work was not merely technical. It was artistic and highly destructive. A single multi-second shot of a building collapsing could take weeks to prepare and only one chance to execute. The management of this unit required impeccable planning, safety protocols of the highest order, handling massive amount of explosives, and a stoic acceptance of the fact that a misfire or timing error could mean months of work literally going up in unintended smoke, with catastrophic schedule and budget implications. The pressure on these teams was immense, as their deliverables were the film's most marketable moments. Talent and crew management presented its own challenges. The ensemble cast, many of whom were in nearly every day of the shoot, had to maintain performance consistency in a film where their eye lines were often fixed on tennis balls or empty blue screens representing world-ending threats. Emmerich's direction focused on eliciting genuine, grounded reactions to the fantastical, requiring the actors to invest fully in the reality of the premise. For the crew, the long hours and technical complexity were mitigated by a palpable sense of participating in something groundbreaking. The production cultivated a band of brothers atmosphere, essential for morale during a physically demanding and intellectually taxing shoot. Managing the interface between the live-action crew and the separate, often secretive effects units required diplomatic skill to ensure a unified creative culture. Financially, the production was a high-wire act from day one. The $75 million budget was a hard ceiling, and with effects costs spiraling as the ambition grew, constant triage was necessary. Producers had to make brutal decisions about what could be achieved practically versus digitally, where corners could be cut without damaging the final product, and which scripted moments might be too expensive to realize. The back-end profit participation deals for Emmerich, Devlin, and key cast members meant that upfront costs had to be tightly controlled to preserve future profitability. The production accountants were as much creative partners as gatekeepers, working with department heads to find innovative, cost-effective solutions, like using a real retired aircraft carrier for the final battle scenes instead of building a partial set. Post-production was a frantic, global relay race. As live-action filming wrapped, the focus shifted entirely to the effect houses, which were now under crippling deadline pressure. The edit, led by David Brenner, had to be assembled with temporary placeholders for hundreds of shots. Composer David Arnold was writing and recorded his epic score to match rough cuts, often having to adjust to new timings as effect shots were finalized. The sound design team was building their library concurrently. All these streams, picture, edit, VFX, sound, music, had to converge in the final mix, which occurred just weeks before the film's release. The final weeks involved 24-hour work cycles, with couriers physically carrying film reels between facilities in Los Angeles and New York. It was a testament to project management that this decentralized analog-digital hybrid pipeline delivered a coherent, polished product on time. In summation, the production of Independence Day was a monumental feat of macro management. It succeeded because it was led by producers who understood both creative vision and complex logistics, who could inspire artists and wrangle technicians, and who maintained an unwavering focus on the final audience experience despite the chaos of creation. It proved that a film of unprecedented scale could be managed without the fully digital pipelines that are standard today, but only through Herculean effort, meticulous planning, and a willingness to embrace controlled chaos. The production stands as a last great example of the analog blockbuster, a sprawling, messy, glorious undertaking where the sheer will of its makers willed a world-ending spectacle into existence against a backdrop of ticking clocks, finite budgets, and the ever-present risk of catastrophic creative or technical failure. The relationship between Independence Day and historical authenticity is a fascinating study in cinematic myth-making, where the film selectively weaponizes real-world history, geopolitics, and cultural memory to forge a narrative of unprecedented global unity against an existential, extraterrestrial foe. The film is not historically accurate in a documentary sense. It fabricates an alien invasion, but it is profoundly historically resonant, drawing its power from the deep well of 20th century traumas, American national mythology, and the fragile post-Cold War political landscape of the mid-1990s. Its accuracy lies not in depicting events that happened, but in authentically channeling the emotional and psychological templates of past conflicts, World War II, the Cold War, the American Revolution, and reapplying them to a speculative, unifying crisis. It is a work of historical allegory, using the iconography of invasion, survival, and resistance to tell a comforting story about human nature at a time when old ideological enemies were gone and new ambiguous threats loomed. The film's most direct historical parallel is to World War II, particularly the early period of the war, 1939 to 1942, characterized by shocking, devastating attacks, the Blitz, Pearl Harbor, followed by a desperate rallying of industrial and moral resources for a counteroffensive. The alien city destroyer attacks are cinematic analogs to the Blitz or the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, sudden, horrifying acts of destruction on iconic homeland targets that shatter the illusion of safety and mobilize a nation and eventually a coalition into total war. President Whitmore's arc mirrors that of leaders like Franklin D. Roosevelt or Winston Churchill, transitioning from a peacetime politician to a resolute wartime commander who must articulate a cause worth dying for. The film's depiction of Area 51 as a secret weapons development hub echoes real World War II projects like the Manhattan District or Bletchley Park, places where geniuses worked in secrecy to develop war-winning technologies. The final coordinated July 4th assault resembles the D-Day landings or the combined Allied offensives, a risky, all-or-nothing plan requiring global cooperation and immense sacrifice. The film's geopolitical landscape is a precise snapshot of the immediate post-Cold War moment. Released in 1996, with the Soviet Union dissolved just 5 years prior, the film presents a world where old enemies are tentatively becoming allies. This is not a historical fact in 1996, but a hopeful projection. The scene where the Russian, Chinese, and other military commands agree to synchronize their attacks with the American-led plan is the film's key fantasy of a new world order actually working. It repurposes the military infrastructure of the Cold War, the satellites, the stealth bombers, the nuclear arsenals, not for mutual destruction, but for collective planetary defense. In reality, such instantaneous, trust-filled military integration was and is impossible, but in the film's allegory, the alien threat performs a magical reset, erasing decades of suspicion and replacing it with pragmatic solidarity. It's a wish-fulfillment narrative for an era unsure of what its new unifying purpose would be. The film's engagement with American history is overt and foundational. The title itself demands a connection to 1776. The narrative is explicitly structured as a Second American Revolution, with the aliens standing in for the British Empire, a technologically superior, imperial force seeking to dominate. The July 4th deadline is not arbitrary. It is a narrative crucible where a new declaration of independence must be made, this time on behalf of all humanity. President Whitmore's speech is littered with revolutionary rhetoric. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day. This directly echoes the spirit of defiance found in documents like the Declaration of Independence. The ragtag, diverse group of heroes, a black pilot, a Jewish intellectual, a Mormon farmer, a stripper, a drunk, represent a melting pot ideal of America, a microcosm of the nation uniting against tyranny. The film argues that the American spirit of 1776 is not a relic, but a living, exportable ethos applicable to any struggle for freedom. The depiction of the military is meticulously accurate in its hardware and jargon, lending a crucial layer of verisimilitude. The film consulted with the U.S. Department of Defense and received support, gaining access to real aircraft like F-18 Hornets and accurately depicting military protocol, uniforms, and base operations. This technical accuracy grounds a fantasy. When the aliens arrive, they are not met by generic movie soldiers, but by the actual, recognizable apparatus of U.S. global power. This makes their instantaneous failure all the more shocking and believable. The use of real aircraft carriers, stealth bombers, the B-2 Spirit makes its film debut, and military bases sells the idea that this is happening in our world, with our tools, making the threat feel proximate and real, not like a distant fantasy. The film also taps into the historical and cultural memory of UFO lore and the Cold War paranoia surrounding Area 51. By making the Roswell crash of 1947 a real alien event within the film's universe, and Area 51 the repository of its secrets, Independence Day validates a half-century of American conspiracy culture. It turns fringe belief into canonical backstory. Dr. Brackish Oaken is the archetypal government UFO researcher, eccentric, obsessed, and ultimately vindicated. This narrative choice is a form of historical fan service, weaving pop culture myth into the film's fabric and giving the audience the thrill of what if it were all true? It provides a plausible, within the film's logic, explanation for how humanity could quickly understand and counter the alien technology, because we've been secretly studying it for 50 years. Where the film takes significant creative liberty, beyond the central premise, is in its simplification of global political and scientific response. The instant, seamless global military coordination is a fantasy. The rapid reverse engineering of alien technology and creation of a compatible computer virus in a matter of hours is a dramatic compression of what would be a decades-long scientific endeavor. The survival of key world leaders and the immediate reestablishment of command and control after a decapitation strike on every major capital stretches plausibility. But these are not failures of accuracy. They are necessities of the allegorical form. The film is not interested in the gritty, bureaucratic reality of an alien invasion. It is interested in the mythic arc, attack, despair, ingenuity, unity, and triumph. It compresses time and complexity to serve that emotional and thematic arc. Ultimately, Independence Day is a work of historical synthesis. It takes the emotional beats of America's founding, the collective mobilization of World War II, the technological anxiety of the Cold War, and the hopeful, unifying rhetoric of the post-Cold War era, and blends them into a potent, universally accessible narrative cocktail. Its historical accuracy is not in its facts, but in its feelings. The feeling of surprise attack, the feeling of resilient defiance, the feeling of putting aside differences for a common cause. It provides a cathartic, simplified version of history where lines are clear, evil is external, and unity is achieved through shared peril. In doing so, it created a new kind of historical document, a blockbuster that reflects not what happened, but how a culture at a specific point in time wished to see itself heroic, ingenious, and fundamentally united when it counts the most. The cinematography of Independence Day is a masterclass in monumental scale and emotional clarity, a visual language engineered by director of photography Carl Walter Lindenlaub to serve two masters, the awe-inspiring spectacle of planetary invasion and the intimate human drama unfolding beneath it. The film's visual philosophy is one of classical composition married to explosive dynamism, using widescreen anamorphic framing in a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, to capture both the crushing horizontality of the alien motherships and the vertical heroism of the human response. Lindenlaub's approach is not overly stylized or gritty. It is clean, bold, and deeply functional, prioritizing geographic clarity and emotional legibility above all else. In an era before digital color grading, the film's palette, vivid blues of clear skies, the warm interiors of human spaces, the cold sterility of Area 51, and the hellish oranges of destruction, was achieved through meticulous lighting, film stock selection, and lab timing, resulting in a look that is both timeless and intensely of its mid-90s moment. The film's visual strategy is cleaved into two distinct acts, mirroring the narrative's own division. The first act, encompassing the arrival and the destruction, is characterized by static, wide, and often high-angle shots that emphasize the insignificance of humanity. The initial appearances of the ships are filmed with a chilling, documentary-like stillness. The camera doesn't shake or panic. It observes, allowing the sheer size of the objects to generate the terror. Iconic shots, like the shadow creeping over the White House lawn or the mothership hovering silently above the New York skyline, are composed with painterly precision, using the anamorphic frame to maximize the contrast between the familiar landmark and the incomprehensible new geometry dwarfing it. These are postcard shots of the apocalypse, designed to be instantly iconic and to sear the scale of the threat into the audience's memory. The color during these scenes is often a perfect, deceptive blue, the kind associated with holiday weekends and leisure, making the invasion feel like a violation of nature itself. When the destruction commences, the cinematography becomes more dynamic but retains a shocking sense of composed carnage. The camera often pulls back to a God's eye view, showing the energy beam as a clean, precise column of light intersecting with the miniature city grids below. The subsequent explosions are filmed with multiple high-speed cameras to capture every detail of the meticulously choreographed model work from various angles. The choice to show the destruction in wide shots rather than chaotic close-ups makes it feel more catastrophic and less sensational. We are not put in the midst of the rubble. We are made witnesses to the totality of the loss. This detached perspective amplifies the horror, making it feel inevitable and unstoppable, like watching a tidal wave from a distance. The color shifts to blinding whites and raging oranges, a visual scream against the earlier calm blues. The second act, focusing on a human regrouping and counterattack, sees a shift in cinematographic language. The camera moves closer to the characters, adopting more conventional shot-reverse shot patterns and medium close-ups to build emotional connection and tension. The interiors of Area 51 are lit with a cold, fluorescent practicality, emphasizing the underground bunker mentality. The lighting on the actors becomes more dramatic, with sharp key lights carving their determined faces out of shadows during the planning sessions. When the action moves to the cockpits for the final battle, the cinematography adopts a more visceral, engaged style. While not using the frenetic shaky cam that would become popular later, the dogfight sequences employ agile, sweeping camera movements on cranes and Euro-stabilized mounts to follow the F-18s and alien attackers. The editing is faster, but the geography of the battles remains coherent. The audience always knows where Hiller is in relation to the mothership where Whitmore's squadron is attacking. This clarity is a directorial and cinematographic choice that respects the audience and maximizes the payoff of the complex effects work. Lindenlaub makes masterful use of the anamorphic frame's unique properties. The wide field of view is used for breathtaking establishing shots of the desert around Area 51, the flight lines of fighter jets, and the sprawling hangar interiors. The anamorphic lenses also produce characteristic horizontal lens flares, which are used strategically, not as a stylistic tick, but as a source of realism, catching the sun glinting off canopy glass or the glare of alien energy weapons. The shallow depth of field associated with anamorphic photography is used to isolate characters in moment of crisis, such as David typing frantically on his laptop, while the alien OS swirls in the blurry background, or President Whitmore's focused gaze during his speech, the ragged crowd behind him softening into an impressionistic sea of resolve. The collaboration between cinematography and visual effects was seamless and critical. For the live-action plates that would later house miniatures or CGI, Lindenlaub had to light and shoot with the future effects in mind. The famous shot of Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum in the alien fighter cockpit, with the mothership interior outside, required lighting that matched the bioluminescent, watery glow of the separately filmed miniature set. The blue screen work, extensive for its time, had to be lit evenly and with careful attention to spill to allow for clean compositing. The success of the film's effects hinges on this photographic consistency. Because the live-action elements were shot with such technical rigor, the added fantastical elements felt grounded in the same light, shadow, and atmosphere. The film's color timeline is a narrative device in itself. It begins with a palette of normality, warm, golden tones in David's New York life, crisp daylight in Washington, the cool early morning over the desert. The arrival of the ships introduces a metallic, cold blue-gray pallor. The destruction sequences are almost monochromatic in their orange and black fury. The second act in Area 51 is dominated by steely grays and sickly greens. The finale returns to the clear blue sky of day, but now it's a battlefield sky, streaked with smoke and laser fire. The final shots amidst the ruins are lit with the golden, hopeful light of a rising sun, symbolizing a new dawn. This color journey, achieved through chemical film processing and careful art direction, subtly guides the audience's emotional journey from peace to terror to desperate resolve to triumphant renewal. In totality, the cinematography of Independence Day is a foundational pillar of its enduring appeal. It is confident, uncluttered, and spectacularly effective. It understands that to tell a story this big, the images must be rock solid. There is no attempt to be edgy or hyper-realistic. It embraces a classic, almost Norman Rockwell-esque approach to composition for the human scenes, contrasted with the staggering, otherworldly imagery of the invasion. This creates a powerful dialectic, the familiar versus the alien, the intimate versus the infinite. Lindenlaub's work provides a sturdy, believable visual scaffold upon which the film's emotional and spectacular payload is mounted. It proves that the most effective cinematography for a blockbuster is not always the most showy, but the most thoughtfully composed to serve story, character, and scale in equal measure, making the impossible feel not just visible, but vividly, tangibly real. The soundscape of Independence Day is a character of apocalyptic proportion, a meticulously engineered auditory event that won the Academy Award for Best Sound and redefined the sonic ambition of the blockbuster. Led by supervising sound editor/sound designer Chris Jenkins and re-recording mixers Greg P. Russell and Kevin O'Connell, the film's audio architecture performs a dual Herculean task. First, to give voice and terrifying physicality to the utterly alien technology and biology of the invaders, and second, to anchor the human drama with emotional resonance and visceral impact amidst the cosmic chaos. The sound design does not merely accompany the images. It builds a world, sells the scale, and manipulates the audience's physiology, using a dynamic range that stretches from the profound silence of deep space to the skull-rattling concussion of a city's annihilation. It is a work of auditory imagination that remains a benchmark for cinematic sound. The creation of the alien sonic signature was a foundational challenge. The design philosophy rejected familiar sci-fi tropes of bleeps and bloops in favor of something organic, massive, and intimidating. The deep, subharmonic drone of the motherships is the film's auditory bedrock, a sound that feels less like an engine and more like the groan of a living continent. This was achieved by processing and slowing down the sounds of jet engines, industrial machinery, and even animal roars, layering them into a complex, shifting tone that conveys immense power and latent threat. It is a sound you feel in your sternum before you fully hear it, a perfect oral metaphor for the ship's overwhelming presence. The distinctive shriek of the smaller attacker craft was crafted from a blend of animal sounds, particularly eagle cries and big cat screams, pitched, distorted, and mixed with metallic tearing and hydraulic whines. This created a sound that was aggressive, intelligent, and unerringly biological, selling the idea of a living weapon. The sound of the city destroyer weapon and the subsequent explosions set a new standard for cinematic destruction. The weapon's firing sound is a multi-stage event. A building, electrical hum as it charges, a piercing laser-like beam tone, and finally, the catastrophic impact. The impact sound is not a single boom, but a layered cacophony. Sound editors combine the recordings of actual large-scale demolitions, volcanic eruptions, and even the sound of a water heater exploding, then layered them with custom-created digital low-frequency waves to produce the sense of a shock wave. The resulting crunch of a skyscraper collapsing has a granular, detailed texture. You hear the girders twisting, the glass pulverizing, the concrete crumbling in a specific sequence. This attention to acoustic detail makes the destruction feel horrifyingly tangible and massive, a feat that pure volume alone could never achieve. David Arnold's musical score is the film's emotional and patriotic nervous system, a work that brilliantly synthesizes grand orchestral tradition with contemporary rhythmic drive. Arnold, stepping into the large shoes left by the film's initial composer, the legendary John Williams, was briefly attached, created a score that is both homage and innovation. He employs a massive orchestra and choir to deliver stirring, anthem-like themes for the human spirit, most notably the heroic, ascending the day we fight back motif associated with the counterattack. For the aliens, he uses atonal clusters, eerie electronic textures, and pounding, irregular percussion to create a sense of otherness and threat. His masterstroke is the fusion of these elements. The finale, end titles, weaves the alien menace and the human triumph together in a thrilling musical summation. The score also knows when to reseed entirely, seating the stage to the sound design during key destruction and battle sequences, understanding that silence or pure sound effect can be more powerful than music. The mixing of the film, a monumental undertaking in itself, is a lesson in clarity and power. In an era of Dolby Stereo SR and the dawn of digital theater sound DTS, the mixers face the challenge of balancing a dense tapestry of dialogue, effects, and music across the front soundstage in limited surround channels. Their priority was narrative intelligibility. Even in the midst of the loudest battles, key lines of dialogue, "All right, you alien assholes," are perfectly clear. The mix uses the surround channel strategically, not for constant immersion, but for dramatic punctuations. The whoosh of an attacker passing behind the audience, the distant rumble of off-screen destruction, the echoed ambience inside the alien ship. This selective use made the surround experience more impactful. The low-frequency effects LFE channel was pushed to its limits to deliver the physical punch of the explosions and mothership drones, literally shaking theater seats and creating a somatic experience of the on-screen violence. The sound of human technology is given equal care to ground the film in a recognizable reality. The roar of the F-18 engines, the clatter of helicopter rotors, the specific electronic beeps and chatter of military comms, the mechanical sounds of the Area 51 hangar, all are recorded with crisp authenticity. This sonic realism provides a crucial baseline. When the alien sounds intrude, their otherworldliness is highlighted by the contrast with these familiar noises. The sound of David's 1996-era laptop keys clacking frantically against the swirling, organic light of the alien operating system is a perfect sonic metaphor for the entire conflict. Human ingenuity, embodied in mundane, tactile technology, interfacing with an incomprehensible alien intellect. The film's use of silence and ambient sound is as critical as its use of noise. The scenes in space, such as the initial shot of the alien armada drifting toward Earth, are played in near total silence, broken only by David Arnold's haunting minimalist score. This emphasizes the vacuum and the eerie, peaceful menace of the approach. On Earth, before the attack, the ambient sound of everyday life, lawn sprinklers, distant traffic, birds, are rendered with heightened clarity. This establishes a world of normalcy, making its destruction acoustically shocking. After the attacks, the ambient beds change and wind through ruins, distant fires, and the occasional crackle of debris, a sonic landscape of aftermath and loss. The vocal processing for the alien creature, though it speaks only a few lines, is a standout detail. The voice, performed by voice actor Jim Pettick and processed through a harmonizer and other filters, sounds simultaneously ancient, intelligent, and cruel. It has a wet, guttural, multi-layered quality that suggests being speaking with several vocal tracks at once, perfectly selling the concept of a shared consciousness. Its mocking laughter as it psychically attacks Dr. Oaken is one of the film's most chilling moments, a sound that conveys malevolence without need for translation. In its totality, the sound and music of Independence Day form a self-contained masterpiece of audio storytelling. The sound design builds the alien threat from the ground up with terrifying originality. The score provides an emotional through line, from dread to defiance to triumph. The mix balances these colossal elements with surgical precision, ensuring the story is always heard. Together, they create an immersive sensory experience that was a key component of the film's theatrical must-see appeal. You didn't just watch Independence Day. You were acoustically assaulted by it, feeling the vibrations of its spectacle in your bones. It demonstrated that in a visual effect extravaganza, sound is not a support system. It is half of the reality, and when executed at this level, it becomes an unforgettable, award-winning force of cinematic nature. The marketing and audience strategy for Independence Day was a paradigm-shifting masterstroke, a campaign that didn't just sell a movie but engineered a global cultural event, transforming curiosity into necessity and speculation into a box office tsunami. Orchestrated by 20th Century Fox under the leadership of marketing president Bob Levin, the strategy was built on a foundation of calculated mystery, staggered revelation, and the exploitation of the nascent power of the internet as a viral rumor mill. With an estimated total marketing spend that likely matched or exceeded the $75 million production budget, the campaign was a high-stakes gamble that paid off by creating a fever pitch of anticipation, ensuring the film didn't just open big. It opened as a historic, must-see phenomenon that dominated the summer of 1996 and reshaped Hollywood's playbook for event movie launches. The campaign's core genius insight was to withhold the film's central spectacle, the alien invasion and destruction, from all traditional advertising. The initial teaser trailer, released in late 1995, was an enigmatic, minute-long piece of visual poetry. It showed iconic global landmarks, the White House, the Empire State Building, the Eiffel Tower, under a perfect sky. Then, a monolithic shadow silently eclipsed them. There were no aliens, no explosions, no stars. Just a shadow, the deep drone of the mothership, and the stark tagline. On July 2nd, our military first detected their presence. On July 3rd, our planet discovered their intention. On July 4th, we fight back. This was marketing as cliffhanger. It asked a question without showing the answer, igniting intense public and media speculation. Was their presence? The mystery was a product. By not showing the aliens, Fox avoided the risk of their design being ridiculed or spoiled. Instead, they made the audience desperately want to see what the film had been clever enough to hide. This mystery box approach was sustained for months. Subsequent TV spots and posters offered only slight variations. Different landmarks undershadowed the tagline and the film's distinctive title treatment. The letters of Independence Day, arranged like a skyline being overshadowed. The lack of conventional imagery forced engagement. Talk shows, entertainment news programs, and newspaper columns debated the premise. Was it a meteor? A tidal wave? An alien invasion? The studio expertly fed the speculation without confirming details, turning the film into a pop culture puzzle. This strategy leveraged a pre-internet age's slower information metabolism, allowing mystery to build and ferment over nearly 8 months. The marketing created a shared cultural conversation. What is Independence Day about? Everyone had a theory, making the eventual reveal a collective event. The film's title was itself a potent, multi-layered marketing tool. Independence Day immediately conjured American patriotism, summer, fireworks, and celebration. It promised an event tied to a specific date, creating a natural release window and a built-in thematic hook. The clever twist, revealed in the tagline, was that the title referred not just to the holiday, but to the day humanity would win its independence from a new oppressor. This dual meaning gave the film an aspirational, universal appeal beyond simple disaster tropes. It wasn't just alien attack. It was The Day We Fight Back, a title that promised agency, victory, and catharsis. The film's premiere and final publicity blitz were masterfully timed to convert mystery into manic excitement. In the weeks leading up to the July 3rd opening, Fox began a controlled release of more revealing materials. Special effects featurettes aired on entertainment shows, showcasing the miniature work and destruction sequences without giving away the full plot. Will Smith's charisma was leveraged heavily. His appearances on talk shows, where he could joke about punching aliens and showcase the film's humor, helped balance the ominous tone of the earlier ads and assured audiences of a fun, crowd-pleasing experience. The world premiere was held not in Los Angeles, but on the deck of the USS Intrepid aircraft carrier in New York City on July 1st, a staggeringly patriotic and photogenic event that generated massive global media coverage. This venue hammered home the film's themes of military resolve and national unity, creating iconic images of the cast with fighter jets and the Manhattan skyline that were broadcast worldwide. The release strategy was a textbook example of platform exploitation. Fox secured a then massive 2,914 screens for the film's North American opening, ensuring maximum accessibility. They orchestrated a true day-and-date global rollout, opening the film simultaneously in dozens of countries over July 4th week. This was crucial for a visual effects-driven film. It capitalized on a synchronized global hype and minimized the window for piracy to undermine international box office. The studio also negotiated lucrative partnership deals. A major promotional tie-in with Pepsi featured cans with the shadow imagery. The film's logo and release date were ubiquitous. This omnipresence, combined with a lingering mystery, made not seeing the film feel like being left out of the global conversation. The audience reception was a perfect storm of fulfilled promise and exceeded expectation. The film delivered exactly what the marketing hinted at: spectacle on an unimaginable scale, but also delivered surprising emotional resonance, humor, and a rousing sense of triumph. Word of mouth was instantly and overwhelmingly positive. Audiences felt they had gotten more than they were promised. They got a thrilling, emotional, and satisfying epic. This propelled the film to historic legs. It didn't just have a massive opening. It had staying power, remaining the #1 film for 3 weeks and in the top 10 for over 2 months. It played equally well to males and females, to teens and adults, because its appeal was foundational, the primal thrill of survival and victory. Critically, the film was reviewed as the event it was. While some critics dismissed it as bombastic or jingoistic, the overwhelming majority praised its sheer entertainment value, groundbreaking effects, and effective ensemble. Reviews often focus on the experience. It was a film to see on the biggest screen, with the loudest sound. This critical validation, particularly of the technical achievements, helped legitimize the film for older audiences and cemented its status as a quality spectacle, not just a noisy trifle. The positive critical response, combined with the public frenzy, created a virtuous cycle that kept the film at the forefront of culture for the entire summer. The long-term marketing legacy of Independence Day is profound. It proved the viability of the mystery box campaign for a tentpole film, a strategy later employed, with varying success, for films like The Blair Witch Project and Cloverfield. It demonstrated the economic power of a perfectly timed global release. It showed that a film could be sold on concept and scale alone, without relying on a superstar's face. Most importantly, it established a modern event movie rollout, where marketing doesn't just advertise a product, but manufactures a cultural moment that the product then fulfills. The campaign turned a movie into a holiday, making July 3rd to 4th, 1996, not just a weekend at the movies, but Independence Day weekend, a destination in the cultural calendar. It was a $150+ million gamble that the public would reward boldness and mystery with historic loyalty, and the public responded with a resounding, record-shattering yes, buying over $800 million worth of tickets to witness the shadow finally reveal the fire. The critical and commercial reception of Independence Day upon its July 1996 release was a seismic event in cinematic history, a rare convergence of massive popular acclaim, robust critical respect, and record-shattering financial returns that collectively crown it not just as a hit of the summer, but as a defining blockbuster of the decade. The film achieved a remarkable synthesis. It was praised by reviewers for its technical prowess and sheer entertainment value, while simultaneously captivating a global audience on an unprecedented scale, grossing over $817 million worldwide and becoming, for a time, the second highest grossing film of all time. This dual triumph cemented its status as a cultural touchstone and validated a new model for the Hollywood megaproduction, one where spectacle, emotion, and simplicity could combine to form an irresistible, globally exportable product. The discourse surrounding the film was largely one of awe, with debates about its politics or depth being secondary to a widespread acknowledgement of its monumental achievement as a piece of popular art engineered for maximum impact. Critical reception was broadly positive, with the film garnering a 67% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and widespread praise for its execution. The consensus from major outlets was that the film delivered exactly what it promised, a breathtaking, emotionally satisfying spectacle. Critics like Roger Ebert awarded it 3.5 stars, calling it an impressive achievement in large-scale filmmaking and praising its sense of wonder. Janet Maslin of the New York Times noted its sly humor and genuine exhilaration. Reviews consistently highlighted the groundbreaking visual effects, the effective ensemble cast, and the film's pacing, which managed to balance world-ending stakes with moments of levity and character. The film was recognized as a technical marvel, with particular acclaim for the destruction sequences and the seamless integration of practical and digital effects. This critical approval was crucial. It framed the film not as a guilty pleasure, but as a legitimately well-crafted event, encouraging broader audience demographics to attend without reservation. The dissenting critical voices, while in the minority, focused on the film's perceived narrative simplicity, patriotic bombast, and derivative plot elements. Some labeled it as jingoistic, critiquing its America-centric salvation narrative despite the late-in-the-game global coalition. Others found the characters to be archetypes rather than fully realized people, and the dialogue occasionally hokey. A few reviews dismissed it as a loud, expensive B-movie with an A-list budget. However, even these critiques often conceded the film's effectiveness as entertainment. The negative responses were largely arguments of taste and ideological preference rather than assessments of craft. Few denied the film's power to thrill a crowd. This critical split between those who embrace its mythic simplicity and those who wish for more nuance actually served the film's reputation, placing it at the center of a lively cultural conversation about the nature and purpose of blockbuster cinema. Commercially, the film's performance was nothing short of historic, redefining the ceiling for an original, non-sequel, non-franchise film. Its domestic opening over the three-day July 4th weekend was a record-breaking $50.2 million, with a five-day, Wednesday through Sunday, total of $96.1 million. This demonstrated the perfect fruition of its marketing strategy. Pent-up demand exploded into massive opening day crowds. More impressively, the film displayed extraordinary staying power. It held the #1 spot at the box office for 3 consecutive weeks and remained in the top 10 for an astonishing 11 weeks. Its final domestic gross of $306.2 million made it the highest-grossing film of 1996 and, at the time, the second highest-grossing film in history, behind only Jurassic Park. Internationally, it was a phenomenon, grossing $511.1 million. Its global total of $817.4 million made it the highest-grossing film ever worldwide for a period, unadjusted for inflation. This financial performance sent an unequivocal message to Hollywood. The global audience for large-scale, American-made spectacle was vaster than previously imagined, and a well-executed original concept could outperform established franchises. In the awards arena, Independence Day was recognized almost exclusively for its technical and craft achievements, which was entirely consistent with its identity. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, a deserved prize that acknowledged the revolutionary hybrid work of Volker Engel, Douglas Smith, Clay Pinney, and Joseph Viscasil. It also won the Oscar for Best Sound, honoring the groundbreaking auditory design of Chris Jenkins, Greg P. Russell, Kevin O'Connell, and others. It was nominated for, but did not win, Best Sound Effects Editing. These wins validated the film's most obvious strengths and placed it in the lineage of technical innovators like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park. Its absence from categories like Best Picture or Best Director was expected. The film was a populist and technical triumph, not an award-season drama. Its Oscar success, however, bolstered its prestige and ensured its place in film history beyond mere box office charts. The film's cultural impact was immediate and enduring. Phrases like, "Welcome to Earth," and "Now that's what I call a close encounter," entered the lexicon. The image of the White House explosion became one of the most iconic shots in cinema history. President Whitmore's speech was memorized and quoted, becoming a shorthand for rousing defiance. The film revitalized the disaster genre and spawned a wave of late 90s imitators seeking to replicate its scale and success. Armageddon, Deep Impact, Godzilla. It cemented Will Smith as a bona fide global movie star and leading man. It also, for better or worse, reinforced a template for the American savior narrative in global crisis, albeit one tempered by the film's last-act inclusion of worldwide forces. The long-term legacy of Independence Day is multifaceted. On a filmmaking level, it stands as a permanent benchmark for practical effect integration and large-scale cinematic destruction. It demonstrated the emotional power of seeing familiar icons obliterated with tangible realism. On an industrial level, it justified ever-increasing budgets for summer tentpoles and solidified the early July release date as the most coveted of the year. It proved that a film could be both a critical and commercial darling by excelling within its chosen genre. Culturally, it remains a defining document of 1990s optimism and techno-patriotism, a film released in the decade's middle, after the Cold War's end and before September 11th, when America's greatest threats could still be imagined as external, conquerable, and literally alien. It is a time capsule of a moment when global unity, led by American ingenuity and courage, felt like a plausible fantasy. Looking forward from its 1996 perch, Independence Day forecast the future of blockbuster cinema in several ways. It previewed the globalized day-and-date release strategy that will become standard. It highlighted the rising importance of visual effects as the primary draw. It underscored the value of a simple, high-concept logline. However, its legacy also includes less savory inheritances. The escalation of budgets to unsustainable levels, the increased reliance on destruction as narrative, and the simplification of geopolitical conflict into easily digestible us versus them allegories. The film is both a brilliant peak and a point of departure for an industry that would increasingly chase its formula, often without its heart or craft. In final assessment, Independence Day was received not just as a movie, but as an experience that validated the communal power of cinema. It was a shared nightmare and a shared victory. Its critical and commercial triumph was a testament to the fact that, when executed with skill, confidence, and emotional clarity, a story about the end of the world could make audiences feel more connected to the world and to each other. It remains a landmark not because it was the most profound film of its era, but because it was perhaps the most complete and effective realization of the Hollywood blockbuster's promise: to transport, to thrill, to unite, and to make you leave a theater feeling against all odds, exhilarated and hopeful. It was the last stand of classic practical effects spectacle before the digital tide fully rose, and it stood so tall that its shadow, like the motherships over the cities, continues to loom over the landscape of popular cinema. The critical and commercial reception of Independence Day upon its July 1996 release was a seismic event in cinematic history, a rare convergence of massive popular acclaim, robust critical respect, and record-shattering financial returns that collectively crown it not just as a hit of the summer, but as a defining blockbuster of the decade. The film achieved a remarkable synthesis. It was praised by reviewers for its technical prowess and sheer entertainment value, while simultaneously captivating a global audience on an unprecedented scale, grossing over $817 million worldwide, and becoming, for a time, the second highest grossing film of all time. This dual triumph cemented its status as a cultural touchstone and validated a new model for the Hollywood megaproduction, one where spectacle, emotion, and simplicity could combine to form an irresistible, globally exportable product. The discourse around the film was largely one of awe, with debates about its politics or depth being secondary to a widespread acknowledgement of its monumental achievement as a piece of popular art engineered for maximum impact. Critical reception was broadly positive, with the film garnering a 67% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and widespread praise for its execution. The consensus from major outlets was that the film delivered exactly what it promised: a breathtaking, emotionally satisfying spectacle. Critics like Roger Ebert awarded it 3.5 stars, calling it an impressive achievement in large-scale filmmaking and praising its sense of wonder. Janet Maslin of the New York Times noted its sly humor and genuine exhilaration. Reviews consistently highlighted the groundbreaking visual effects, the effective ensemble cast, and the film's pacing, which managed to balance world-ending stakes with moments of levity and character. The film was recognized as a technical marvel, with particular acclaim for the destruction sequences and the seamless integration of practical and digital effects. This critical approval was crucial. It framed the film not as a guilty pleasure, but as a legitimately well-crafted event, encouraging broader audience demographics to attend without reservation. The dissenting critical voices, while in the minority, focused on the film's perceived narrative simplicity, patriotic bombast, and derivative plot elements. Some labeled it as jingoistic, critiquing its America-centric salvation narrative despite the late-in-the-game global coalition. Others found the characters to be archetypes rather than fully realized people, and the dialogue occasionally hokey. A few reviews dismissed it as a loud, expensive B-movie with an A-list budget. However, even these critiques often conceded the film's effectiveness as entertainment. The negative responses were largely arguments of taste and ideological preference rather than assessments of craft. Few denied the film's power to thrill a crowd. This critical split between those who embrace its mythic simplicity and those who wish for more nuance actually served the film's reputation, placing it at the center of a lively cultural conversation about the nature and purpose of blockbuster cinema. Commercially, the film's performance was nothing short of historic, redefining the ceiling for an original, non-sequel, non-franchise film. Its domestic opening over the three-day July 4th weekend was a record-breaking $50.2 million, with a five-day, Wednesday through Sunday, total of $96.1 million. This demonstrated the perfect fruition of its marketing strategy. Pent-up demand exploded into massive opening day crowds. More impressively, the film displayed extraordinary staying power. It held the #1 spot at the box office for 3 consecutive weeks and remained in the top 10 for an astonishing 11 weeks. Its final domestic gross of $306.2 million made it the highest-grossing film of 1996 and, at the time, the second highest-grossing film in history, behind only Jurassic Park. Internationally, it was a phenomenon, grossing $511.1 million. Its global total of $817.4 million made it the highest-grossing film ever worldwide for a period, unadjusted for inflation. This financial performance sent an unequivocal message to Hollywood. The global audience for large-scale, American-made spectacle was vaster than previously imagined, and a well-executed original concept could outperform established franchises. In the awards arena, Independence Day was recognized almost exclusively for its technical and craft achievements, which was entirely consistent with its identity. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, a deserved prize that acknowledged the revolutionary hybrid work of Volker Engel, Douglas Smith, Clay Pinney, and Joseph Viscasil. It also won the Oscar for Best Sound, honoring the groundbreaking auditory